pass. All right, so if you have your stuff stored in plastic and you're pulling them out, sometimes they will stick. Don't try to force it because you'll end up tearing your slabs. Try to go from just a corner and gently peel that edge. It's okay if it warps and bends while it's soft. But once you get that lifted, you should be able to peel it away. And then to get it to lay down, just drop it. Whoop, that was a terrible drop. Okay, you're going to probably end up doing some trimming anyways with these as you assemble the box, so it's no big deal. Okay, if this side didn't work or if it was really sticky, just go from another vantage point. Okay, and again, don't leave those all curled. Set them on the table, flatten them out so that as they get to that leather hard phase, they're all flat. Okay, and if you have some specific trouble with that, let me know. I can come and help. Some other students had really wet slabs. You don't have to create one stack. You can create a couple of stacks in your bag so you don't have as much weight of one piece or another stacking on top of each other. Also, you can even the drying out a little bit more if you have maybe just two here. Maybe I'll store it just like this instead in my bag. Okay, just need to make sure that you have enough locker space. I'm going to set these aside, and I'm going to talk about these techniques. So these are my test tiles. They're a little bit smaller. And the first technique that I'm going to describe is slip trailing. So here in class, we have these little applicator bottles at home. If you're making slip and want some different containers, you could use, these are just henna tattoo bottles that I bought off of Amazon. They're like a dime a piece. I think they came for like $7, like 100 or something like that. Anyway, they're cheap. They also sell stuff like this at craft stores. I've also used empty glue bottles, empty mustard and stuff like that. So lots of stuff that you might have lying around would be helpful for this. Anyway, so I'm just going to kind of squeeze it out. My design is like bees and honey. So I'm just going to start that kind of beehive pattern. Oh, this is clogged. Just unclog that with a needle real quick. Oop. There we go. And squeeze it out. So I'm going to create this thick gob at the top, and I'm going to create like little drips. And I think that's a good start, but it does look really flat, so I'm going to actually use gravity to help with the slip to kind of create more of a dripping look. So there we go. See how it now pulled that down and then trying to find the right angle, but you see it's thin at the top and thicker at the bottom. That's more of what I'm trying to go for with my look. Now, if you don't have some of the things that I described, you can make your own slip pretty easily. Where did I put that bag? Okay, so I just took a plastic bag, added a ball of clay, and added some water and just squished it until it's turned into slip. And I can just seal that off. Maybe even tie it. But what I'm just going to do is take either, is there a pair of scissors on that table, Trenton? Yeah. I'm going to start with the small cut, and then if I want a larger opening, I'll make a larger opening. Okay? If you have a twist tie or something, it makes it a little bit easier to control. But this is kind of like your cake frosting, so maybe I'm going to try, I don't know, maybe some flowers for my bee. Whoop. If you make a mistake like that, no big deal. Sweep it off. The only tricky part with slip trailing is essentially like when you put this on there, it has to dry, right? And if you're going to cover this with plastic, you probably need to do your slip trailing at the first part of class, and then like allow enough time for it to dry. And I do have heat guns in the classroom. You know, in your home space, if you're doing this, it's a little bit easier to just leave it on a countertop for a couple of hours where you don't have to think about it. But here we have to leave the space and allow other people to use the room. So anyways, let's try that again. There we go. I keep getting clogs in that. There we go. I did just make this slip, so it's probably really just chunky. You know what? Let's just go for it. Let's just see what kind of textures we can get out of this. So I've seen this before where people just gob on the slip and then take tools that you have in your kit. And then let's create some texture patterns. I'll just peel that off here. So it doesn't necessarily have to be something very illustrative or detailed. It can be something that's just more textural in quality. So those of you who are doing like very rustic looks, this could be kind of a cool technique to try. Anyway, I'm going to move on. Raise your hand if you have any questions about slip trailing. Thumbs up if you get it. Okay. More or less. All right. Next technique I'm going to show you is still additive. It's called Applique or Applique. It's a French term. Actually, I'm going to steal some more clay from over here. So if you have molds like this, and I do have these in the class, I just bought these from the craft store. They're made for like cake decorating and fondant. But maybe I want like a little flower or a cactus. I can take clay, press it in. These are pretty soft molds, so I need to make sure I get pressure on the top edge. And then to release it, I just stretch and pull it out. So now I have my little flower. I can score and slip and put, paste that on there. This is a little thick, so I'd probably let that dry to leather hard and then shave the back down so it's not so thick above the surface. See if I can even do that while it's soft. Yeah, that's a little better. But now I want to create my little bee that's maybe drinking from the flower. So I'm going to create, let's see, little body of a bee. There we go. Maybe create those little stripes on it. Make it more pointed at the back. Okay. And then I'm just going to have it set there. If you're working really soft, you don't necessarily have to do like full score slip. You can spray the clay and score. That'll create enough moisture to essentially create your slip layer for you. Okay. So I'll push that right there. And then make my two little wings. Oh, that's a little bit bigger. Press, press. I'm just going to skip scoring and slipping so you guys can move on to the next thing. Okay, so now I have my little bee. I've got a flower sculpted onto my form. Okay, so essentially what this technique and the other technique is doing is from the background creating a 3D effect where it's lifted forward. Does that make sense so far? Any questions? All right. So the last thing I'm going to do is show you how to create subtractive relief through carving. Okay. Stamping that you've already done with your soft slabs is a subtractive relief technique, so you're welcome to use that as long as you're still in your final form incorporating one of these 3 techniques. Okay, you can still decorate it with others. That's just additions to what we're required. So maybe I'm going to create like a little honeycomb pattern. So I'm just going to start with my incisions or incised lines. And I'm not really concerned about being perfect with this. I think through repetition, it kind of, like your brain fills in some of the gaps. Like these, you know, if I was maybe more concerned with perfection, I'd take a hex head screw and press that in instead. But I'm going for a more playful look. And if you didn't make 3 test tiles, you know, you could test all 3 techniques on this. Like I could have made my honeycomb pattern. I could have put the bee on top of these honeycombs and then like slip trailed the honey dripping down over the top of it. So with this, I'm going to take this little ribbon carving tool, and I'm going to use the sharp edges to kind of cut and pull my design. So I'm going to press here and carefully drag to the middle. Okay, and I'm going to turn the object versus turning my hand. Okay, so think about how that would work on doing the sidewall. You might have to like take your box and flip it so that the side's on the top. Okay, or rotate it. And this does definitely have more consequence than some of the other techniques. Like after you carve something out, if you make a mistake, you actually have to like build up some clay, smooth it back down, and then fix it. But it can be fixed. Like don't feel like just because like you made a mistake with your carving that you have to start your box completely over. It's not the end. Okay. And you do have to be careful. Like if you've made really thin slabs, it's really easy to accidentally carve through. Okay, that is another relief technique, so you're welcome to use piercing, which is when you actually like cut windows out of the clay. But that's not my intention here, so I'm going to be careful with how much I'm carving down. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just do one more and stop. See. Okay. And then I can reinforce those lines too with some of my other tools. If it bothers me, I can just do little presses and smooth it out. Maybe smooth across the bottom as well. Okay. But now I have a little bit more depth and shadow and highlight that's showing some interest. And you know, it's also going to actually make my box a little bit lighter to hold. So that's just something too that's beneficial to this technique. So again, this is what I've done with carving, applique, and slip trailing. Just to show you some finished examples. This pattern was done with the carving technique, right? So that's what I did here. A little bit more intricate detail. If you're worried about your drawing ability, we can take paper and use that as a stencil where we lay it on top of your clay, trace the lines of your paper, peel it away, and you should have indents in your clay. Okay? And then you can do that carving that way. So if you want really specific designs and you're not sure how to draw or how to do that, I can help you out. This was done the same way where I rolled out a slab, took an Egyptian scarab stencil and traced it out, and then I cut these pieces out and put that on here. Okay, same thing with this one. I like Biggie Smalls, so I found a symbol You know, it was his head with the crown, and then I just freehanded the letters, but I was able to put that down on paper, trace that out with a pencil, peel the paper off, and then use the slip trailer to trace out that outline. So anyways, those are the 3 techniques. Let me know if you need any help, but go ahead and start practicing on your test tiles, and then think about how you would do that on your final form or if you need to revise it.